movies can quickly go from obscure to cultural phenomenon if they have a kick-ass trailer to get people hyped for them. The success of recent horror hits like Hereditary, The Babadook, Goodnight Mommy, and The Conjuring all stemmed from people freaking out over their scary trailers. So what goes into making one? Is there a formula for fright? It turns out there's not one way to scare up big box office receipts. Movie Crush Monday is asking the question, how do you construct a horror trailer? Just like the films they promote, horror trailers have evolved over the decades. The earliest trailers for 1930s monster movies like Frankenstein and The Mummy relied on the star power of icons Bela Lugosi and Boris Karloff and the relative novelty of movies in general. These promotional reels introduced the loud, booming male narrator voice that would dominate the form for only about the next 50 years or so.
To shock women into uncontrolled hysteria.
A little bit like the inner world guy crossed with a carnival barker. By the 1950s, hot new tech like television started to put the fear in studio executives who developed new ways of attracting audiences. We might call them gimmicks. Legendary director and studio head William Castle, sometimes called the P.T. Barnum of Hollywood, is most identified with this sales tactic. Castle would often appear in trailers for his own films, introducing audiences to his latest gimmick like Percepto, Emergo, or life insurance certificates should the viewer die of fright.
Don't reveal the ending of Homicidal to your friends, or they will kill you. If they don't, I will.
Alfred Hitchcock would also promote his own films and trailers, most famously for Psycho, which finds him giving a 6.5-minute walking tour of the film's locations and teasing elements of the plot.
This picture has great significance because... let's go along to cabin number 1.
Then this happens. Wait, go back and pause it right there. See that? That is most definitely not Janet Leigh. It's actually co-star Vera Miles in a blonde wig. I guess Janet was busy that day. In the 70s, as horror movies began getting gorier and grittier, their trailers followed suit. The exploitation flicks of this era were known as Grindhouse films. Where your typical Hollywood prestige drama might play in a fancy cinema, the low-budget fare of the 1970s was mainly relegated to shoddy, dirty, all-night theaters known to grind up their prices as the day went along. The earliest matinees were dirt cheap, while the more popular evening showings were more expensive. The Grindhouse trailer is perhaps the pinnacle of the art form, the chef's kiss of terror trailers. The technical and financial limitations trailer editors and indie filmmakers bumped up against in this era resulted in some incredibly weird work. Generally, they followed a formula that looks something like this. Poor quality plus flying text plus dramatic title reads divided by a long cast list plus an amazing tagline. First of all, these trailers looked terrible. Or at least they did after being run through a projector for 10 shows a day for 3 months. But it's an aesthetic that was perfect for the sort of whacked out movies these trailers promoted. The text came flying at you fast and furious. And apparently in this era, there was an unofficial rule that you had to say the name of the film in the trailer at least 12 times.
The hills have eyes. The hills have eyes.
The Night of the Sorcerers.
It's alive!
Now, divide that by an endless list of cast members, add one amazing tagline.
You've made it through Halloween. Now try and survive Christmas.
And you've got yourself a Grindhouse trailer. But in 1979, the trailer for Ridley Scott's Aliens set a new standard for short-form terror. Completely wordless, it takes a strikingly modern approach. There's no voiceover or dialogue from the film. It's just a quick-cut montage of the movie's scariest moments with a terrifying soundtrack underneath. Seriously, what is that noise? Alien was part of a tradition of awesome montage trailers like ones for The Exorcist and Suspiria. This tactic could be a little deceiving because it resulted in a trailer that was often way better than the movie. The Exorcist 2 is pretty bad, but you'd have no idea based on the trailer, a haunting montage of creepy imagery set to a rollicking Ennio Morricone tune. The 1980s marked the dawn of the VHS era, and even greater importance was placed on trailers, which were tacked on to the beginning of tapes. Horror trailers maintained much of their 70s aesthetic with their dramatic voiceover reads,
Julie Christie carries the demon seed.
flying graphics, and incredible taglines.
Remember that little kid you used to pick on? Well, he's a big boy now.
A more recent horror trailer trend is the audience reaction trailer, where you get little to no actual footage from the film and instead see preview audiences who are being filmed by night vision cameras. Paranormal Activity's runaway success was definitely linked to its campaign of reaction trailers, showing audience members totally losing their minds while watching the movie. The strategy was used for a number of horror films from the era, including The Conjuring, The Woman in Black, and The Gallows. Which brings us to horror's most recent trailer phenomenon, the screamer trailer. Jump scares have been a big part of horror's visual vocabulary since the end of Brian De Palma's Carrie. But the modern screamer trailer kicks it up a notch by making the jump scare the entire point. The Strangers, the 2008 home invasion shocker starring Liv Tyler, features one of the most famous and subtle jump scares in trailer history. Keep your eye on the left side of the screen. Perhaps the most notorious example of a screamer trailer is one that appeared on social media for The Nun in 2018. It opens on a black screen before an icon pops up that makes it look like your system's volume is being lowered. And then... God, every time. That trailer received so many complaints that it was pulled from YouTube for violating the website's shocking content policy. Other recent horror films like Pet Sematary, Insidious, The Last Key, and It have also relied on shock and jump scares to startle viewers into paying attention. If the early horror movie trailer was about the promise of fright in store for a film's audience, nowadays the trailer itself is a means of scaring people silly. And in an age where staying home has never been more enticing, it's a great strategy. It reminds people why they go to the movies in the first place: to be affected, to be moved, and yeah, to be terrified. So you can be sure that whatever's scaring audiences the most 10 years from now, Hollywood will figure out a way to sell those fears right back to them, in trailer form. And if you still can't get enough horror trailers, be sure to check out the amazing ones on this list. So, what's your favorite scary trailer? It's from Scream. Let us know in the comments, and don't forget to subscribe to SYFY WIRE.